Hey guys, Rebel95, recording live from your Look County prison cell. You'll notice the location's a tad bit different, and the angle's a little bit different. I've had some complications with my setup, but that never seems to be the reason. That wasn't exactly like a huge leap in production, so no big deal. Speaking of no big deal, this fight is, well, I wouldn't say it's bad. It's one I had on the back burner, never really bothered looking anything into it, but it's pretty good, and I figured, it's something to do for the week. So this fight is Percy Jackson from, well, the Percy Jackson series, and Atreus from God of War, specifically God of War 4 and Ragnarok. I would like to add the caveat, and this should go without saying, I understand that we do not know every, you know what I mean? There are likely to be more God of War games, even if it's a decade from now. Obviously, I'm not going to try to take that into consideration when I do this fight, so I'm going to work with the information that we have available at the moment. Also, I would like to keep in mind that I've read the first, I think I read, the first two Percy Jackson books, and then I got, a couple chapters into the third one, and then I stopped, and I had all 6 books at one point, even though I'd only read the 2, and I do not know where those are now, and what have you, right? I didn't read any of the Son of Osiris. I didn't read any of the what's it called? The Roman one. Yeah, but point is, I'm somewhat familiar. I'm not super familiar. I did have to look a bunch of stuff up. But anyway, so we'll start with Percy Jackson since I've been talking about him. So, Percy Jackson, is the demigod son of Poseidon, Poseidon and a human woman. This gives him an just insane amount of different abilities. He is exceedingly strong, durable, quick reflexes, has incredible he has incredible senses and whatnot. He has a lot of other, but mostly it's his abilities that pertain to the water, right? He's able to he's hydrokinetic. He's able to manipulate water, even up to like emptying out rivers at one point, right? Being able to move rivers, thousands and thousands of gallons of water at a time. He's able to form them into he's able to cover himself in it. He's able to shoot it out in giant blasts. He's able to make a sword out of it. He also heals faster in water. He can swim very, very quickly. One of the things I like about the Percy Jackson series is there's not really necessarily a ton of rules to their magic system. So that does give this cool kind of living attribute to his magic when it describes it. It says that he's the water is the water is moving around him when he swims. He can breathe underwater. He can see in the dark underwater. He and objects that he holds do not get wet unless he wants them to while he's underwater. He can grant other people the ability to breathe underwater. Sea creatures treat him with reverence. They treat him with automatic respect, even if he doesn't command them per se. Also horses, because Poseidon was also the god of horses. He's also able to generate miniature storms because Poseidon was also the god of storms. He's able to and he's also able to summon water. This is he doesn't create it out of thin air. He kind of draws it from the earth per se, but he's also able to use water to manipulate other things like the earth. He was even able to like displace enough water that he actually caused a volcano to erupt, which would be like manipulating plate tectonics and shit like that, which is, you know, insane. And then there's some other like really cool abilities that I think, you know, this is the reason I liked the Percy Jackson books as a kid, is because they really do add like a layer of they really do add like a cool like world building attribute. Like for instance, he as a human, he has ADHD and dyslexia. His ADHD is meant to give him like is meant for the battlefield, right? He has attention to detail. He has like quick thinking. It's like it translates into him being perfect on the battlefield, but like scatterbrained and you know, like very quick thought, you know, everything in real life. He got the good ADHD, where the rest of us didn't. He has dyslexia when reading English, but but his brain is hardwired for ancient Greek, as it's said, right? Where he can perfectly read ancient Greek, even though he never studied it, right? And he also did have a natural affinity for Latin, due to it being the Roman language, and he was also taught Latin, but he did have a natural affinity for Latin for learning it. And there's a whole sub story of the Roman gods and how they're involved with the Greek gods and all of that. And then and then other than that, he has some his typical equipment is a magic sword, a bronze sword called Riptide. It's bronze because bronze is very good at killing monsters in the Percy Jackson universe. And it's basically just a pen, like a fountain pen, that if he clicks it or if he rips the cap off, it turns into a 3-foot bronze sword, and he can never lose it. If he ever drops it somewhere, it will magically appear back into his pocket, so he cannot be disarmed with this weapon. And he also has a wristwatch that is not magic, but it was made by a giant, I think it was like a Cyclops, but it was made by a giant who's like a brother of his or adopted brother of his or something like that, who just has who is just very, very good at making, you know, he's very, very good at like crafting. And it's a wristwatch that turns into a spiral bronze shield. So he's always armed with a sword and a shield at all times, basically. The shield can be removed. Like I said, the sword can't really. Then there were other things, like he has ambrosia and stuff like that like will magically heal him. But if he eats too much of it, it like makes him burst into flames. Because it's the food of the gods. But yeah, I mean, just an incredibly adept fighter, an incredibly powerful opponent, and with access to water, all of the, normally his superhuman physical traits are kind of like hit or miss. Like, yeah, he ripped the Minotaur's horn off, but that was kind of just like, and it's sometimes said it's because of a mental block of his powers, but it has stated that when he's in water or touches water, his latent powers become even more prevalent, to the point where he was able to deflect a volley of arrows with his sword, and he was even able to, I think it was like deflect or cut a bullet out of midair that he didn't even see. He just did it instinctively. So his reflexes are fast enough to deflect a bullet. Yeah, so I mean, this is a crazy opponent, but the same could be said for his opponent being Atreus. So Atreus, or Loki, is a take on the Norse god, where Atreus is actually the son of Kratos and what is he? He's a Kratos and his and I think his mother was a frost giant, right? And this basically gave him an innate mix of godly powers that are not quite completely understood, but it gave him some natural abilities. Again, like, he has an insane affinity for languages. His mother taught him many languages, right? But he's able to just basically look at the thematic, the trends and everything, the tendencies of a written language and its letters, and basically just decipher it and figure out what everything is saying. Even, like, the smartest beings in their universe say that it's ridiculous how, somebody his age can do that. He's considered, he can even, like, speak to animals. He has superhuman level senses, especially when he touches his bow. He's had several bows, but generally he uses the bow that's was made by his mother. I think it's all the same bow, actually, and it's just been enchanted several different ways. But the bow, when he touches the bow that his mother made him, he can see individual blades of grass from, like, miles away, and he can, like, shoot them down if he wants to with arrows. If he's able to, like, hear voices coming from, like, again, miles away from, like, every direction. He's able to, like, he's very, very perceptive, and he uses these abilities in combat because, like I said, he has a bow, he's an archer, right? So he's able to shoot, he's been seeing shooting perfect shots in free fall, shooting between between hits during, like, non-choreographed fight scenes. He's even been able to shoot foes that are phasing in and out of reality while they are mid-shift reality. That is part of the magic part of the bow, but he still is able to do that. He's still able to hit them while they're doing that, which is crazy. I mean, like, the arrow being able to hit them is one thing. That's just the magic. Him being able to aim for an opponent who is going to be shifting between realities is another, right? That's kind of the ridiculous part. Speaking of which, in addition to using this bow as, like, a staff that he can just hit you with, he also has an affinity for magic and runes as well, Nordic runes. Or Norse runes, I don't know. And this ability is, leads to him being able to do a lot of different spells and whatnot, but also being able to interact those spells with powering up his bows and his bow and arrow, right? So he can, like, imbue the bow with magic, and typically his neutral one is, like, light magic. So he has, like, light imbued arrows, and he can power up the staff and whatnot. But then he's even able to summon the spirits of different animals who are way bigger than their normal worldly counterparts. Like, he can summon giant wolves, and he's also, because he knows the different elemental runes, he's able to imbue these kind of, like, spiritual beasts with energy, as well as his arrows. Things like electricity, ice, heat, whatnot. And his and so he can summon, like, wolves, he can summon falcons, or is it falcons? Yeah, I think it's falcons. He can summon ibis, whatever, which is just like a giant horned goat, basically. Fucking huge. You can summon squirrels. But another thing that he's able to do is his late is part actually from Kratos' side. In addition to having, just basically more, like, above human level strength, speed, durability, and whatnot, though it doesn't tend to appear very consistently, he also has access to Spartan Rage. Now, originally his Spartan Rage was too much for his body to handle, so he just, would like collapse after using it. But his Spartan rage manifested itself into, I guess, with his frost giant abilities, and gave him the ability to transform into these gigantic animals that he can normally summon. So he can turn into a giant wolf who's capable, like, not like 20 feet tall or something, but like a wolf bigger than a person who's capable of like decapitating people and ripping their abdomens apart. He can turn into an eagle or a falcon and fly at like tremendous speeds. And he can turn into a bear who is strong enough to maul and like destroy Kratos and like throw him against trees and shit. Like, he's harmed his father before, both with his regular, like, both with his arrows and also like in these forms. This bear is like a gigantic, it's crashed through walls. It's, again, like, it's taken out the Valkyries, which are, these superhuman opponents that like even Kratos had trouble fighting. Right? So this is like a huge deal for him. Yeah, but I mean, both of these kids are kind of crazy, right? Both of these kids have some incredible power going through them, being, the spawns of gods and whatnot. So going into this fight, there are only a few things to take into consideration, right? A lot of Atreus' elemental magic is not going to be very useful, because Percy Jackson's hydrokinesis gives him resistance to, like, usually resistance to temperature. He cannot be harmed by water because it's basically like the water will not let itself bring harm to him. He's fallen from like skyscrapers into pools, which should be the equivalent of like landing on concrete, and the water basically like caught him, you know what I mean? Like, because it could not hurt, like, he cannot be hurt by water, essentially. So like the fire and what did I say? I think he uses wind and whatnot. Like, his ability to create wind and whatnot with the magic is probably going to be countered by Percy's own ability to create like miniature hurricanes, essentially, which is what the storms that he can create are. He doesn't create like real storms, he creates like personalized ones. And Atreus has been seen to do that as well, but it was more like the world's reaction. It's been stated that, like, in much the same way that the Greek gods, their deaths affected the world and brought around the apocalypse, the world was reacting to a god dying, and it created like a storm, or a god being near death and created a storm. So it's not exactly something he can like use, because he has to be almost dead for it to happen. But even then, like, Percy can actually do that regardless, so he can probably just counteract that. Right? Now, that's not to say Atreus is out because of that, but that is a portion of his arsenal being not really useful. I mean, the other stuff that he can use that I just realized I forgot to mention, like the sonic arrows, which cause implosions, and the hex arrows and whatnot. Those would obviously, but again, like, no individual power set, unless it's literally the determining factor, like, unless it is the reason that the character wins, is necessarily like, oh, well, he can still use electricity, so that means he's fine. It just means that, a section of his arsenal is going to be not very useful. Percy's also been resisted. He's also resisted magic before, but it was the way it's stated in the books, maybe it's just because they never had a Norse chapter, but it's basically stated that that Percy's demigod status, when, I forget if it was the Son of Osiris guy or if it was like it was one of the Egyptian guys, tried to cast a spell on him using Egyptian magic, which is distinctively separate from its pantheon, right? And the spell was stated to kind of just go around him, as if it didn't quote unquote, as if it did not know what to do with him, right? So a spell normally meant to like, so like their magic is basically like confused by him, but that could very likely just be Egyptian magic, or it could be any like non-divine magic. But that's a lot of conjecture, so I'm just gonna say that it was Egyptian magic specifically that he's not immune to it either. He's just like very resistant to it. It does his being a demigod makes it less effective, I would say, or makes it like not work as intended. That being said, I mean, Atreus still has a lot of abilities that like will work on Percy, like all of the animals and stuff, and all of the you know, being able to turn into a bear. His level of perception is incredible compared to Percy's, right? Being able to like shoot arrows from like across mountaintops essentially, versus though Percy did again swipe a bullet out of midair and, you know, counter like volleys of arrows at a time. So we know that Percy probably has the speed advantage. But the main thing that I think, I'm going to go ahead and give the win to Percy here. The main thing that I think gives Percy the win, outside of all of the, like I said, all of the conjecture and whatnot, in addition to like Atreus's, parts of Atreus's magic not going to be effective, the thing that gives Percy the win here is, I think, just going to be the magnitude of power that Percy has, you know, like access over. Like I said, being able to like basically empty out rivers and cause volcanic eruptions if he focuses hard enough, and he's even able to control a like a non-physical mist that exists that separates the human's perception of all of the things. Like so like the Greek myths can exist amongst humanity, but don't get recognized because the mist obscures humans' vision of them. It's not a real mist. It's not like a physical, tangible mist, but Percy can still manipulate it, right? So like the scope of his of control of things that he has access to, right? And again, being able to create miniature hurricanes and whatnot. That's just far like Atreus's magic is meant for like fighting individual or like groups of people and whatnot, but like he doesn't directly have access over some like that level of power. Like I said, he has, you know, accessed like things like Spartan rage and you know, the world being able like creating storms due to him being near death. But that brings me to the second reason why I think Percy takes it is Atreus never has consistent control of his abilities. Percy struggled with that for a long time in the series, but Atreus never, even to right now, Atreus seems to like not have full control over himself, and that is because we even the audience don't know the full extent of his powers, and the characters in the series don't know the full extent of his powers. They've stated that, but like I'm not gonna wait for the next game to find more out. So if that happens, it'd be funny if they go to Egypt and then all of the Egyptian magic that he learns doesn't work on Percy anyway, so this episode still stays the same. But that's why I'm going to give it to Percy. It's going to be Atreus is not only working with a limited moveset, but he's working against somebody with who's just too fast for him to really pull any, like... Atreus isn't going to be able to get a lucky shot in against Percy, right? Because, again, his mind and body are essentially tailor-made for the battlefield, right? And at his peak, he's done feats of speed and reaction time that we've never seen Atreus match. But also it's the fact that he's just working with a level of power that Atreus might be able to match but can't control, whereas Percy can. And also, Atreus can't control most of his power. Like, that's kind of it. It's not really. So that's why I give it to Percy Jackson. Anyway, good fight. Hopefully more to come. It's appropriate because Kratos versus Ashura got or Asura or Ashura or whatever got announced. But yeah. They're gonna have to wait for season 2 of that Disney show to come out before they make this because they need a visual medium. Anyway, for Virtual Engine 95, see ya.